The steaming hot liquid hit Maya's face before she even registered the movement of his hand. It wasn't just a spill. It was a weaponized burst of scalding heat that splashed across her cheeks, soaked into the collar of her pristine navy blue uniform, and dripped agonizingly down her neck. The smell of roasted Colombian beans, usually a scent of comfort in the early morning cabin, instantly became the suffocating odor of humiliation. Time seemed to fracture in the first-class cabin of Flight 402 bound for London. One moment, Maya was politely asking the passenger in seat 1A to raise his tray table for takeoff, and the next, she was blinded by pain and dark brown stains, gasping for air while the man responsible stood over her, his face twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. "I told you I wasn't finished," he screamed, his voice booming in the confined space, silencing the rustle of newspapers and the clinking of glassware from the other passengers. "You people never listen. You think because you wear a uniform you can order me around? I paid $12,000 for this seat, and I will not be harassed by a glorified maid." Maya wiped the coffee from her eyes, her mascara smearing, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. But she didn't retreat. She stood there, trembling not from fear, but from the immense effort it took to hold back the tears that threatened to fall. This moment, right here, is the nightmare every service worker fears. The moment when dignity is stripped away by someone who believes their bank account gives them the right to be cruel. If you have ever been looked down upon, if you have ever had to swallow your pride just to keep your job, then you know exactly how Maya felt in this frozen second. Welcome to Her Secrets, Her Stories, the channel where we uncover the truth behind the masks people wear. We are a growing community dedicated to telling stories of justice, resilience, and the moments where the underdog finally wins. If you believe that respect is something everyone deserves, regardless of their job title or the color of their skin, please take a moment right now to subscribe to our channel. Your subscription is the most powerful way to support a young creator and ensure that stories like Maya's get heard by the world. Please like this video and leave a comment telling us where you are watching from. It truly means the world to us. Now back to the cabin where the silence was deafening. Maya blinked the stinging liquid from her lashes and looked up at the man, Grant Sterling. She knew his name not just from the passenger manifest, but from the reputation that preceded him. He was a corporate raider, a man famous for dismantling companies and firing thousands of employees without losing a wink of sleep. He stood there, chest heaving, pointing a manicured finger at her face. "Don't just stand there looking stupid," Sterling spat, wiping a speck of coffee from his own expensive cup. "Clean this mess up, and then get me another cup. And this time, make sure it's actually hot, not this lukewarm trash you just spilled on yourself." Maya took a slow, shaky breath. She was 24 years old, a young black woman working her first month on this prestigious international route. To Sterling, she was nothing. A statistic, a servant, someone he could break because he assumed she had no power. He saw her skin, he saw her uniform, and he calculated that she was defenseless. But what Grant Sterling didn't know, what nobody on that plane knew except the captain in the cockpit, was that Maya wasn't just a flight attendant. Her name was Maya Vanderbilt. Her father was Elias Vanderbilt, the founder and CEO of the airline they were currently sitting in. Maya had insisted on working undercover, starting from the bottom, scrubbing toilets and serving drinks, because she wanted to understand the heart of the company she would one day inherit. She wanted to know her employees not as numbers on a spreadsheet, but as people. And today, Grant Sterling wasn't just abusing a staff member. He was assaulting the future owner of the airline. But Maya couldn't blow her cover. Not yet. She had to handle this by the book. "Sir," Maya said, her voice surprisingly steady, though it lacked its usual warmth. "I am going to have to ask you to sit down. You have assaulted a crew member. This is a violation of federal aviation regulations." Sterling laughed. It was a cold, barking sound. "Assault. Don't be dramatic. It was an accident caused by your incompetence." And don't quote regulations to me, little girl. Do you know who I am? I am a personal friend of Maya Vanderbilt. We play golf at the club. If I make one phone call, you won't just be fired. You'll be blacklisted from every airline in the country. Now, get out of my face and fetch the purser. I want to speak to someone who actually matters. The other passengers in first class were shifting uncomfortably. A woman in 2A looked horrified, but said nothing, averting her gaze. A man in 1B watched with morbid curiosity. This was the bystander effect in full swing. Everyone saw the abuse, but no one wanted to risk the wrath of the loud, wealthy man in the front row. Maya felt a single tear finally escape, tracking a hot line through the cooling coffee on her cheek. She reached for the interphone on the wall, her hand shaking. "I am calling the captain," she whispered. Sterling stepped forward, invading her personal space, his breath smelling of mint and aggression. He grabbed her wrist hard. "You aren't calling anyone," he hissed. "You are going to go to the galley, you are going to get me a fresh napkin, and you are going to apologize for ruining my mood. Do you understand me?" The physical contact crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Maya pulled her arm back, a flash of the Vanderbilt steel finally showing in her eyes. "Let go of me," she said, her voice dropping an octave, losing the customer service lilt and gaining the command of a CEO. "Right, now." Sterling blinked, surprised by the sudden change in her demeanor. But before he could escalate further, the heavy door to the cockpit opened. The sound of the lock clicking was like a gunshot in the tense silence. Captain Miller stepped out. He was a man of few words, a former Air Force pilot with 30 years of flying experience. He saw the coffee dripping from Maya's chin. He saw the red mark on her wrist where Sterling had grabbed her. He saw the puddle on the floor. And then he looked at Grant Sterling. The temperature in the cabin seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Is there a problem here?" Captain Miller asked, his voice a low rumble that carried more authority than Sterling's shouting ever could. Sterling straightened his jacket, putting on his best charming smile, the one he used to close million-dollar deals. "Ah, Captain, finally, yes, there is a huge problem. Your stewardess here is hysterical. She spilled coffee all over herself and then accused me of assault when I simply tried to help her. She's clearly unstable. I want her removed from this flight immediately. For the safety of the passengers, of course." Sterling looked at Maya with a smug grin, confident that the captain would side with the platinum status passenger over the young disposable black girl. He thought this was the end of the game. He thought he had won. But he had no idea that he had just dug his own grave, and the soil was about to be shoveled in on top of him. Captain Miller didn't return the smile. He didn't even blink. He stood tall in the aisle, blocking the view of the cockpit, his 4 gold stripes glinting under the cabin lights. He looked at Grant Sterling, then he looked at Maya. He saw the dignity she was trying to maintain despite the coffee staining her uniform, despite the humiliation burning her cheeks. He knew exactly who she was. He had known since the day she boarded his crew rotation, assigned by her father with strict instructions that she was to be treated like everyone else, unless her safety was compromised. And looking at the bruise forming on her wrist, safety was no longer a question. It was a violation. Captain Miller took a step forward, forcing Sterling to take a step back. "You say she spilled it on herself?" Miller asked, his voice dangerously calm. "That is interesting, Mr. Sterling, because from the spray pattern on the bulkhead behind her and the fact that the liquid is primarily on her face and neck, physics would suggest the cup was thrown with significant force from the direction of seat 1A. Unless you are suggesting the laws of gravity have been suspended in this cabin." Sterling's smile faltered. He hadn't expected the pilot to analyze the scene like a forensic investigator. "Look, Captain, details don't matter. It was a chaotic moment. The point is, she was rude. She was disrespectful. And I know the owner of this airline, Maya Vanderbilt. We are close personal friends. If you don't handle this girl, I will call Elias personally, and have you both stripped of your wings before we land in London. Do you really want to throw away a 30-year career over a diversity hire? The insult hung in the air, toxic and ugly. Maya flinched, not because it hurt her, but because she felt the sheer ignorance of the man. Captain Miller's jaw tightened. He looked at Maya, giving her a subtle nod. It was a signal. The signal that the masquerade was over. Maya took a deep breath. She reached up and unpinned the silver namatag from her blouse, the one that simply read, Maya. She set it down on the tray table next to Sterling with a quiet click. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a damp handkerchief, wiping the coffee from her face with slow, deliberate movements. When she looked up again, the fear was gone. In its place was the icy, unyielding resolve of a woman who grew up watching her father negotiate with heads of state. "Mr. Sterling," Maya said, her voice clear and resonant, filling the silence of the first-class cabin. "You mentioned my father." Sterling frowned, confused. "Your father?" "I don't know who your father is, and I don't care." "I'm talking about Elias Vanderbilt." "Yes," Maya continued, stepping closer to him, her height seemingly increasing with every word. "Elias Vanderbilt. The man you claim to play golf with. The man you claim is a close personal friend." She tilted her head slightly. "That is funny, because my father hates golf. He has a bad back, has since '98. He prefers swimming. And in all the years I have sat at his dinner table, in all the Christmases and Thanksgivings, I have never once heard him mention the name Grant Sterling." The color began to drain from Sterling's face. He looked at the captain, then back at Maya. What? What are you talking about? Who are you?" "My name," she said, enunciating every syllable, "is Maya Vanderbilt. I am the Executive Vice President of Customer Experience, and I am the daughter of the man you just threatened to call." A collective gasp swept through the cabin. The woman in 2A covered her mouth. The man in 1B dropped his magazine. Sterling stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. That's impossible," he stammered, his arrogance crumbling into panic. You're a stewardess. You're wearing the uniform. You single quotes re dot double quotes. "I am working," Maya cut him off sharply. "I am doing the job that you think is beneath you. I am learning how my employees are treated by people like you. And today, Mr. Sterling, you have given me a masterclass in why this company needs a zero-tolerance policy for abuse." Sterling laughed nervously, a high-pitched, desperate sound. Okay, very funny. "Good joke. Look, Maya. Ms. Vanderbilt. Clearly, we got off on the wrong foot. I was stressed. The market is volatile. I didn't mean to. The coffee just slipped. I would be happy to pay for the dry cleaning. Let's just forget this happened, shall we? I'm a Diamond member. I spend $500,000 a year with this airline." He reached out as if to pat her shoulder, to smooth things over with the fake camaraderie of the wealthy. "Don't touch me," Maya said. She didn't shout it, but the command was absolute. "You assaulted a crew member. You verbally abused a woman you thought was powerless. And you tried to use my father's name to intimidate his own staff." She turned to Captain Miller. "Captain, what is the protocol for a passenger who assaults a crew member pre-flight?" Captain Miller crossed his arms, a grim satisfaction on his face. "The protocol, Ms. Vanderbilt, is immediate removal from the aircraft and involvement of federal law enforcement." Sterling's eyes bulged. "Removal? You can't be serious. We take off in 10 minutes. I have a merger meeting in London. If I miss this flight, I lose millions." Maya looked down at the coffee stains on her ruined uniform, then back at the man who had put them there. "Mr. Sterling," she said softly, "you have already lost. You just don't realize how much yet." She pulled out her phone, not a personal phone, but a secure company device, and tapped a few buttons. "I am flagging your profile in our global system. As of this moment, you are placed on the no-fly list for Vanderbilt Airlines and all our alliance partners. Your return ticket is canceled. Your diamond status is revoked. And your miles? They are gone." Sterling looked at her phone in horror. "You can't do that. This is illegal. I'll sue. I'll buy this whole damn airline and fire you." "You can try," Maya said, her voice like ice. "But right now, you are trespassing on my plane." She nodded to the captain. "Captain Miller, please escort Mr. Sterling off the aircraft. The airport police are waiting at the gate." The walk of shame that followed was something the passengers of Flight 402 would talk about for years. Grant Sterling, the man who had entered the cabin like a king, was now being marched down the aisle like a common criminal. He tried to protest, he tried to shout threats, but Captain Miller's grip on his arm was ironclad. 2 airport police officers met them at the cabin door, their faces stern. As Sterling was handed over, he looked back one last time at Maya. He didn't see a servant anymore. He saw a queen in a coffee-stained suit, standing tall amidst the wreckage of his ego. "This isn't over," he screamed as the officers handcuffed him. "Do you know who I am?" Maya simply watched him go, her expression unreadable. "Yes," she whispered to herself. "You are a passenger we no longer serve." As the police dragged him up the jet bridge, the entire first-class cabin erupted into spontaneous applause. The woman in 2 stood up. "Good for you, honey. He was a monster." The man in 1B nodded respectfully. "I've never seen anything like that." "You handled him with grace." Maya managed a weak smile. The adrenaline was fading, and the sting of the burns was coming back, but she felt lighter than she had in years. She turned to face the cabin, addressing the wealthy, powerful people who were watching her with new eyes. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice trembling slightly but gaining strength, "I apologize for the delay. We will need a few minutes to clean up the cabin and offload Mr. Sterling's luggage. I want to thank you for your patience." She paused, looking at each of them. "And I want to remind you of something. The uniform I am wearing, it doesn't make me invisible. It doesn't make me deaf. And it certainly doesn't make me a target. Every person on this plane, from the captain to the cleaner who will come in here in a moment, deserves your respect. Not because of who their father is, but because they are human beings." She walked to the galley where the other flight attendants were waiting. Her colleague, a young woman named Sarah who had been terrified to intervene, hugged her tightly, sobbing. "Thank you, Maya, thank you. Nobody ever stands up for us." Maya held her back. "That changes today, Sarah, I promise." Maya didn't work the rest of the flight. She changed into a spare uniform and sat in the jump seat, writing notes. Furious, detailed notes about passenger conduct protocols and crew safety. When they landed in London, the story had already leaked to the press. #CoffeeBreath was trending on Twitter. Grant Sterling's merger meeting was cancelled because his partners didn't want to be associated with someone who assaulted airline staff. His stock plummeted. He lost not just his flight, but his reputation. 6 months later, the culture at Vanderbilt Airlines had completely transformed. Maya Vanderbilt, now officially working from the headquarters as the chief operating officer, implemented a new policy: the crew comes first. It gave flight attendants the power to issue warnings and even ban abusive passengers without fear of retribution. She also designed a new training program, one that every executive in the company had to take. Once a year, every VP and director had to spend a week working as cabin crew. They had to wear the uniform, serve the drinks, and look the passengers in the eye. They had to learn what Maya had learned, that the heart of the airline wasn't the planes, it was the people. One afternoon, Maya was walking through the terminal at JFK. She was wearing a tailored business suit now, looking every bit the executive. She passed a gate where a flight was boarding. She saw a young black flight attendant dealing with a difficult passenger who was complaining about his bag. The passenger was raising his voice. Maya stopped. She watched. But this time, she didn't have to intervene. The flight attendant stood tall, pointed to a sign on the wall, a sign Maya had commissioned that read, "Respect is our priority. Abuse will not be tolerated." The passenger read the sign, looked at the flight attendant's confident face, and backed down. He apologized and moved his bag. The flight attendant smiled, a genuine relieved smile. She didn't know Maya was watching. She didn't know that the policy that just protected her came from the woman standing in the shadows. Maya smiled back, turned, and walked away. She had taken a cup of scalding coffee to the face so that thousands of others wouldn't have to. And as she looked at her reflection in the glass of the terminal window, she didn't see a victim. She saw a leader. The scars from the burns had healed, but the lesson remained. You never know who you are talking to. That quiet girl serving your coffee might be the one signing your paycheck tomorrow. Or she might just be a human being worthy of kindness. Either way, the price of disrespect is always higher than you think. If this story resonated with you, if you believe that everyone deserves dignity in the workplace, please hit that like button. It helps us spread this message. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to deal with a customer like Grant Sterling? How did you handle it? Don't forget to subscribe to Her Secrets, Her Stories for more tales of justice and karma. Until next time, be kind to each other. You never know who is watching.